Belleville Area District Library Board will come to order, and we will begin with the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And our secretary will please take the roll. Please, Alma.
Javits, here. Dawson,
Is absent at this point, probably will join us.
okay. Gates,
Here.
Hughes Bucks here. Jariga, excuse.
Is absent and excused.
Peters,
Here.
Priest,
Here. The next, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I customarily contact everyone about agenda items prior to putting the agenda together, but last week I neglected to do that. So as I told you, if there was something extra that anybody had, we can entertain it now. And whether or not we do that, we still need a motion to approve the agenda, and then we'll discuss all this.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I second the motion.
Moved by Priest and supported by Gates. We have this motion and properly seconded, and it's on the table now. Are there any additions or changes or concerns about the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We have no opposition and unanimous approval. The regular meeting minutes from September 10th were in your packet and are before you now. And we need to approve them as well. And so at the appropriate time, I will introduce a motion and support for that.
I move that the minutes be approved as presented.
Motion by Gates and support by
I second that motion.
Priest, that the minutes be approved as presented. Any comments, questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying no. The motion carries with no dissenting votes. So that's pleased. And now we are to public comment. And I see our public, our favorite public is here. Do you have any comment, Rosemary?
I do. At the Sumter meeting just now, somebody asked if there were gonna be books at their library.
Hooks?
Books.
Oh, books.
And Karen Armida said, no, they would be computers, and you could order books, and they'd be delivered there, and you could pick them up and drop them off, but there weren't gonna be any books. Aren't there gonna be books? No?
I think what Karen said is basically true. Mary Jo?
It's a very small building,
I know.
so we might have some Friends of the Library book sale books in an area. There's really not room, to have both the books and the computers.
And the township wanted us
Yeah.
to focus on media center.
Yeah, there has not been demand from Sumter to us for having books. However, I understand, like, how you're responding, that a library that doesn't have books
I
seems
know,
strange.
I thought
We
there'd be
do
at
have
least
all these books that are Friends of the Library books, and those which are in the front, and there will be in the new library these kind of books, but there will be extras that we could perhaps have one little
One book.
Oh,
This is what we used to have in libraries.
yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to say.
But just to affirm what Karen said, we will be providing home pickup for people, so if they want items, we will send them down there to pick up.
And they can
they'll be able to
return-
return their items there too.
they can return their items there. So there's books on demand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But that's a good question. And here is Mary Jane, as we
Sorry.
said. She would join us, and she did. Well, you haven't missed her. We are at, yeah, Grandma, we've been talking. We are at public comment, and we have just finished our public comment, I believe. So, we are now at committee reports. And I believe that with the first committee report, which is building, we will share between Shehevitz and others of us from the building committee to talk about where we are now. If you want to start out, Joy.
Well, I missed the latest one, so I bet everything that I have here is obsolete. Because I had the one from 9/19.
Well, we usually do
We
have
had
two
one last
reports.
week,
Right.
so, which I couldn't attend. So, yeah, at the time, they had found a solution for this circular stairway, not to have too much flex. The DDA is planning a spring, summer, although there may be new information about this, about working on 4th Street. There was issues still with DTE, but Miss Dig had been scheduled, so, that should be a done deal by now. And they were looking at a March 1st date to work on this building, the tear down on this building. And furniture bid pack, there's 2 bid packs for furniture. One was going out, bid pack 1 was going out that day, and the second one also should have already gone out. And then what can you add?
Mary Jo will have an update on the furniture. And on the first thing you said about the stairs and the flex, yeah, that's been resolved, but the DTE is still,
DT was on site this week, the gas portion, and I think they dealt with whatever they needed to do. I think that's all set.
Elevator, that was one
The
of the.
elevator's being installed this
okay,
week.
it was delivered yesterday.
Mhm.
The restroom tile was done.
It's pretty. I went in there and looked at it.
Network guy was working on the ceiling grid. Maybe he's done, not sure. All the brick washing is done, second floor window is done, except for a couple. I love the curtain wall is coming up now that's around the tower.
Looks lovely.
Looks
So
so
pretty.
good.
Yeah.
And they were finishing, well, they're not finishing, they're gonna be working on sidewalks through this week.
I walked around the building, I don't know, a couple days ago, a few days ago, and, when we were in, last week's building committee, Dean talked to us about the concrete and the sidewalks and all that, but it was quite interesting to see them. And, over there by where, on Charles Street, where many of us park and where the staff goes across the street to the church, they've done the curb cut for the new, both curb cuts for the new parking lot, the Charles Street curb cuts, and there's a tree in the middle now, but some kind of time they'll get that tree out, and then when they cement it over, it'll be like the driveway, so that's what we'll use, and, to get to there'll still be a way to get to the Methodist Church parking lot, even during while we are getting this building done. And what else did we talk about?
We awarded the furniture bid pack number 1 and 2 were awarded to LDA and HLF. So it was kind of a little bit of a split. I can't remember.
What was it, either one?
I think LDA was some tables, the TMC tables and the shelving. HLF did the end panels and the warden tables.
Warden?
The
W.
ones that go upstairs.
It's a brand
It's a
or
brand
something.
table.
That's a great idea.
It's kind of a generalized.
It's not a jailer.
Right.
That's your world.
And they're going to be making those tables themselves in-house, so it's going to be based on the design we want.
Right.
Our
No.
exact
They're
specific.
the ones in Van Buren Township.
Yes,
the
right.
HRD.
So it is local also, that's a good thing to point out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
These are the ones that have the plugs and outlets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of them do, some of them are
Well,
the waiting tables too,
In
I
fact,
think.
the bids both came in a little bit under bid, so we were talking about things that we could restore back to the project, and one of them is going to be some of the electrical outlets. We were kind of doing like every other table would have an outlet, so now we're trying to restore more of those, putting some new floor black boxes
Which
on the
is
floor.
really good,
And putting
given
the
the
floor outlets on the
technology.
tables. so.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, change will likely be more as opposed to less. There's another item, when you talked about the DDA and their time frame, I wanted to confirm that the meeting that we, the library, initiated about our new front door, which is a meeting between VBT, which owns the museum and old fire station, the museum people, and the DDA and us, which are the public entities, which will border on this new area, and we all looked at that new area last time. That meeting has been established, and it will be an open meeting. We're calling it as a meeting of the building committee. And anybody that's interested can, I'm sure we'll learn a little more about what the DDA is planning and their time frame and all of that. The meeting is meant to encourage coordination and communication. We have been communicating a lot. We've been going to DDA meetings and talking some with the museum, but the museum discussion hasn't been it's been less direct. The museum, we know, is already doing the updating on the inside of the museum. But the questions about how the fire station, they're awaiting a grant, hoping for a grant, which they have to wait to find out about, but some discussion about how that those fire station doors will be basically right at the opening of our library and right at the end of this 4th Street development that the DDA is doing. So coordination and discussion on October 24th at 10 a.m., I believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
10 a.m. in this room.
And what date is that?
That's a Thursday.
Thursday?
A Thursday.
Isn't the grant that they're waiting for to connect the museum itself to the fire station?
To the fire station.
So they can
With the
display
glassed in.
Right.
I think they're
thing.
placing in the
Right,
doors.
right.
And then we hear various discussion about what's planned for the fire station and for those fire station doors. People seem to be discussing they have some kind of plan on that, but I've not heard the official, which I'm hoping we'll hear.
And
Rosemary may know more than me.
No, well, at the Tuesday meeting of the Van Buren Township Board of Trustees, Sherry Frazier, when they were talking about the museum work, she said, that those doors, those fire station doors are horrible looking, and they're right next to the new new library, and we've gotta do something with that. And everybody said, yeah, we have to look into it, so it didn't sound like they had a plan.
Yeah, I don't know for sure either, and you covered that in the last week's edition of the paper. So I am hoping that just having some discussion where we'll be able to talk directly to them. I've talked to VBT people, and then at the DDA meeting, the museum, Katie Dallas was there, but nothing has really been pulled together for people to just freely communicate among all of these groups. What you reported really doesn't have an impact on us, because you reported that they're having an issue with the city about their sign, but their sign will be on Main Street, correct?
Right, but they were thinking maybe you would chip in on it, so you could have your stuff on your sign.
And they have, to my knowledge, they've not talked to us about that, or have they?
So like an LED sign.
Well, yeah, but then the city is balking and
Right.
saying that you can't do
Right,
that.
they're not gonna do it.
So I used to be on the Historical Society board and, up until about, I think it was 3 years ago. And I remember when they were talking about making the doors look prettier, you know.
The
that
doors
part
at the fire station?
at the fire station look prettier. One of the issues was if you go into the building and the doors are down, there's all of this stuff, like placards and different things from, different fire departments.
On the
you know,
insides of the door?
Yeah, on the insides of the door. So if the doors are down, you see them, and if the doors are up, you look up and you can see it. And that was one of the things I remember
That they talked
that they had
about.
talked about, but I always thought, well,
Couldn't
if they're
you
not
make them-
painted directly on the door, and I don't think all of them were,
Yeah,
that they could be,
they could do something else.
right,
Take the doors off and put them on the walls.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping there's some discussion, it was clear in what Rosemary put in the paper, and it's been clear by stuff people have been talking, hearing through the grapevine, that they have some ideas, but I've not heard anything official. Kevin McNamara from the VBT is planning to come, as is Matt Best, who's the planning director for VBT.
And I think Spicer, so.
Right,
And then the DDA would have Carol Thompson and Spicer.
so,
And
We
are
should
we
talk
having
about
a-
anybody on the old construction too.
yeah.
Yeah, Dan is definitely gonna be there, and then it's during the day, so our O'Neill construction people can participate without
So I
us
have a
making
question,
dragging in
because
the evening.
I may have missed this someplace. Those two buildings belong to the Van Buren Township.
Right,
However, they're in the city. But who has jurisdiction over what kind of sign or whatever goes out
The
there?
city
Do you know?
The city's already
The
said
city?
they have an ordinance against it, because the idea was,
Even
they
though
don't
it's
want
the-
downtown to look like Las Vegas Strip.
Right,
And if you let one, then others will want it.
and I remember those, I was at some of those meetings for the city. But if it's on Van Buren Township's property,
Well, Kevin had said, we want to be friends with the city and
Right.
follow our neighbors' ordinances. But the two ladies on the board will have none of it. They want the sign, the
both,
electronic
was it
sign.
Sherry and
Yeah.
Reggie?
Yeah, and
Is
so
that
they're
the two
pushing
ladies you're talking about?
Kevin, and Kevin did call yesterday. He called the city, and Diana said she told him why they had the ordinance they did. And that if they wanted to go for an exception, they would have to go through the council would give it to the planning commission, the
Right.
planning commission would make a recommendation. Come
And
back.
oh, what fun that is.
So what is it, what they want, an LED, like one of those
like the
flashing
one
work
that's at High
changes?
Street,
Yeah.
you know, which to me makes,
No sense in front of a historical museum.
Well,
I
she thinks it's the other way
disagree.
around.
Oh.
Because to me, it's like the library. I know when I go by the sign, in Canton,
granted, it's not an LED sign, you know, they change the letters and the words and everything every once in a while. But you know what's going on in the library.
Right. Well,
And isn't that what we wanted?
we look at this meeting
Yeah.
as a meeting of the Community Cultural Hub, which is what this is gonna be. And the community's ideas about how to promote, you know, because there's programming both in the museum and the library. And some of that ends up on the LED sign at High Street.
Right.
But generally speaking, I never see everything that's on that, because you
No.
don't sit there at the light long enough to see it all, and people get a little upset with you if you just sit there reading the sign and not move.
Especially
You have to
if you get
park.
out of your car.
Oh, so I don't know, I expect that it might be something that we'll talk about on the 24th. We don't have any jurisdiction over it, and I have not been aware of any official request that the library participate with the lighted sign. I read it in the paper, but, you know, whether it might be a good idea, might not, I would not, I don't think it would be on the library to spearhead an effort through the process of a variance and going back to the planning commission. And I'd be, if EBT wants to do that, they can go ahead.
However, we haven't really talked about a sign on Main Street at all, really, because we figure people will see us.
We wouldn't have one, unless something like this happens,
Yeah.
we won't have a sign on Main Street.
It's not part of their grant money though, is it? What is the?
Well, their grant money is for what Mary Jane was talking about.
But it didn't include.
Not as far as I know, it was just to include, or to enclose the area between the fire station and the museum.
The actual buildings, to kind of have.
I can't imagine they would, I can't imagine they would have money to do that, because those signs are very expensive.
Yeah, the township has money.
So they would pay for the sign for the museum?
Oh,
That Kevin, yeah, if he's the one that wants it. So, you know, that's all the more reason why our meeting is timely.
mm-hmm.
And the start time for the meeting?
10 a.m.
Then,
It's in this room, and the posting is as a building committee meeting, but just like our building committees are always posted, and the rest of the board is more than welcome to participate, that, you know, it could, and I'm glad we're hosting, because we who sit around this table are the only elected officials that are elected by all these entities. We represent Van Buren Township and Belleville and Sumter. So it is, I think, appropriate for us to kind of work for coordination between all these entities.
I have one question. When we had talked about before, we were talking about a hard hat tour. Still doing that?
We have talked to.
I haven't got to be in it yet.
Huh?
I haven't got to be in it yet.
Yeah, well, so you could, I went around last week with Mary Jo, and of course, it was right after and Dan. We went through, and I hadn't been for quite a while, it's very different than it was. So yeah, a hard hat tour, following the meeting, and several of our community partners seemed enthusiastic about that. And well, our front, when you get on our second floor and look out of our boardroom window, or at this very time, because it's still under construction, you can't really look out of the curtain wall window as much as we will be able to. But you certainly look over the museum and that whole 4th Street thing and the laundry cleaners, the building that the cleaners is in. And looking at it is even more, you know, kind of informs you in a way that just talking about it doesn't. So I think it'll be useful for people to look. It was useful for me. Because we see the fire, we will see the fire station doors when we enter in and out of our building. When we go upstairs in our building, we'll see the fire station roof, which is not exactly a thing of beauty, but maybe they'll think of
It has
something.
no screen on it.
No, we will have all our little vegetative stuff to look out over our roofs, and they will not. They will have, I don't know, they will have the opportunity to dream and think about things, and I think it'll be lovely. Anything more that I?
Sumter?
It's about the Sumter branch?
Yes, let's talk about Sumter.
Do you want me to do that? or-
You can do, you were at the very last one and I was not, but it's
But-
beautiful getting in there.
Yeah, it's, they painted inside, plumbing, electrical, and wall demolitions have been completed. They've poured the concrete around the outside, the site concrete. They've done the remediation of the asbestos on the floor and dug the channels that needed to be dug for the electrical.
Oh, good.
Computer tables are on order. This week, the fiber optic line, the AT&T fiber optic line is scheduled to be installed. I ordered a book return last week and it's actually en route right now as we speak, so that is going to be imminent. So things are really happening
that-
fast, yeah.
Is that like what we have outside?
It was similar to what we have outside.
Okay.
So it's a standalone book return?
It's a standalone book return, and I think there will
But
be
it
room.
has drive up.
Yeah, though, I think there
You
should
can
be room to be able to
drive
drive
up
up
and
and return your
nice.
Oh,
books.
good,
I like
that'd be
that.
nice. Can people return their books to this, like, even if they didn't get it out of Sumter?
They can return them there.
They can return it to there? So, if you can, we won't have a drive up there, so you could drive down to Sumter and drive up and.
Yeah, you don't wanna get out of your car.
If you
go
don't
to
wanna get
Sumter.
wet, drive to Sumter, just buy some more gas.
You might live halfway in between and you can decide.
You can, and plus it's a nice little drive.
Stop and exchange and eat.
That's right.
Right,
Good food there.
you could have a little exploring Sumter. Oh, good, anything else on building? Look, so now Mr. Jariga is not here, and that I know of, I think there is no report for bylaws. For finance, Barbara, you and Mary Jo, do you have anything you wanna tell us?
No report.
No report. Marketing, Alma Hughes Grubbs.
Okay, the marketing committee met on Wednesday, September the 11th at 11:10 a.m. was the time that the meeting convened. We discussed, let's see. That we're supposed to be checking with Sumter on the ribbon cutting event.
For Sumter, that's something that'll happen in 2019. Have we done that? Have we talked to Sumter about how they wanna do about opening the new building?
Do they still think they can open by the end of October?
They'll be done with the work, but we won't be done with putting in furniture and setting up the technology.
When do we think that,
We're thinking November.
Yeah, probably, right now I'm gonna say late November. I think by the time we get in there and get everything done.
So after Thanksgiving.
or before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Well, that's late November.
Around Thanksgiving.
Around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So, but we have to work with Sumter about when
Right.
we have this event. So, do you all still meet with Sumter every Thursday?
Almost.
Yeah, we'll ask them.
How lovely. Good, so yeah, we could start talking about, because that will be an event that needs some planning on both sides, and the marketing committee would be active with that.
And it might be
Maybe
something
tomorrow.
we end up planning for after we actually open this, so that
Right,
we know.
that we're actually open. So we might plan for a soft opening down there and then the ribbon cutting, maybe within a few days or something. Our marketing committee meets tomorrow, so I don't guess we'll have any more information than we do now on this subject, right?
So,
No.
so going back to Sumter, are we still looking at the same type of hours for the building to be open initially?
We're looking at
2 days we're
alternating mornings and afternoons, Monday and Wednesday, 10 to 3, Tuesday and Thursday, 3 to 8.
Okay,
Say it again. Monday,
Monday and
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 10 to 3,
I know I helped you figure this out, but
Tuesday and Thursday, 3 to 8. And I'm gonna go back and look at my last director's report to make sure I'm correct.
it was
I know you had it.
Saturday.
was there
They're
any,
all in Saturday,
Yeah,
10 to 3.
yeah.
10 to 3?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
and we're still gonna have 3 people, or, I'm sorry,
12 people.
Okay, and also dignitaries will be invited to this event as well.
Right. And if it's even around Thanksgiving, that's just a little over a month from now, so our little invitations and all that stuff. Although, would we be the ones doing the inviting, or would Sumter be the ones?
We'll talk to them, we'll probably run the
It's
lead.
probably us, you know.
I think the biggest thing will be the millwork might be the thing that delays more than anything.
And so we have to check when that's on. Because we don't wanna have an opening and the building isn't ready.
right,
And I know the metal roof is right at the end of the project too, so we have to wait for that.
It's
That's
not,
not done.
they don't have to get,
No, they had to order it, and it was like a 6 or 8 week pre-order thing.
and they're still putting lighting in the inside to look like a sunroof, but it will be a mock sunroof, right?
Yeah, we actually had a conversation about possibly having Diane Eisinger do a stained glass piece over that opening, so
Oh.
I'm going to,
And
I'm
then
going
light it.
to get with her about, scheduling a time where she can come look at the site to see if it's possible.
We're also talking about a monument sign by the road, but hopefully it will be lighted.
Becky, can a lighted sign, does Sumter have any problems with lighted signs?
No. But we are
Sumter
talking
wants
an
to have
LED
lights.
sign.
if they do, I don't think.
They
that's
actually
a
do
bad
have
deal.
ordinance against LEDs, those kinds
This will
of
be,
signs.
it will be up lit.
But it's not gonna be that kind of sign.
Oh,
We gave them the font that we're using on the building here, so that it will be uniform hopefully.
hopefully, good. So, for marketing, we went back to the Sumter building, good for us.
Okay, and also this coming Saturday will be the Harvest Fest, and we will be holding it from 11 to 3 o'clock, I believe. And the table will be inside the library that I guess the board will,
We
and staff.
have an information table inside of the building. One of the friends of the library is going to staff it during the morning shift. So if I have a board member who would like to help out in the afternoon, that would be great. Just let me know after the meeting if you can help. Basically, you're handing out the flyer and answering any Harvest Fest related questions and giving out little toys. Little spider rings and spider yo-yos. And
Did you do bubbles this year?
I don't remember if we have bubbles or not.
Oh, I know where you can get bubbles.
Yeah,
Not bubbly, just bubbles.
we're gonna do bubbles, not bubbly,
Lovely.
but not that day, I mean necessarily, who knows?
And also for the farewell party, I mean, if there's nothing else further about the Harvest Festival, correct, if there's any questions. But for the farewell party, which is tentatively scheduled for February the 21st at 6 p.m., Mary Jo has booked the band.
Yay.
What's the band?
Marty and Dave Wilson.
Oh, yes, yes.
The brass guys.
What was the date?
February
February
21st.
It's a Friday.
I've been telling people about that. They think that is so cool.
I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And
They said,
especially-
can anybody come? I said, show up. We got beads, we got decorations, we're gonna have a brass
Entertainment, a whole
band.
bunch of stuff in it, and Mardi Gras kind of things are always good. And we still could stand, well, we need to talk to the band, the second line idea, which I think is really cool too. A New Orleans style way of mourning, but in a celebratory way, is kind of what we were looking at about saying goodbye to our old building and
Mhm. That's a good-
so we could dance around it's kind of a little line dance that I've participated in, but I don't exactly know how to lead.
Oh, YouTube. It'll be on YouTube.
You just, yeah, and it's just a little two-step, it's a two-step kind of thing that people do. I was
You
one.
got 4 months.
YouTube.
To perfect it,
Yeah,
to lead the line,
yeah.
the second line.
I got a little way to do second line, and I know they wave white handkerchiefs because people are mourning. But one time when I was in New Orleans, a big second line came down the street of the place where our meeting was being held, and we all joined in. Yeah, people would just go along, and the band plays, you know, when you have a brass band playing like that, it just kind of moves people.
Mm.
I think this is gonna be
I think that's one of the neatest things, yeah.
yeah.
Besides a new building.
Yeah, so yeah, that's great fun, although, before that happens is the, book brigade and the silent open, and the, soft opening of the new building, which is scheduled for sometime earlier in February, right?
Probably. I have no control over that.
We have no
I have no control over that.
We have no control over when the building will completely be finished, but we will control the book brigade. The plan is that the professional movers will have moved everything out of this building that we need, and we'll have moved in the new furniture that we've ordered, and,
And Mary Jo is gonna advertise for volunteers.
yeah, and she's gonna reserve, whatever books we will use for this ceremonial book brigade, which will not be many, because the volunteer book brigade is not gonna be the main people to move all this stuff. But then people will push carts from here to there, right?
Hopefully we'll have enough people we can just pass the book around.
Pass,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna have one of those human automation lines, human assembly line.
There's a friend of ours who, now I can't remember which library it was it Adrian?
I think so.
Yeah. They were moving from a very small building to a little bit larger building, and this friend of mine, when she knew that we were, and this was like, had to be 7 years ago that she gave me this article, where they physically did this book brigade down a block
Oh,
and passed all this stuff down, and,
Really moved. They really moved the line.
they really moved the library, and,
They probably didn't do it in early January or.
I don't
February.
remember what month they did it, but I remember her telling me that it was really cool because, senior citizens came out to do it, middle-aged people came out to do it, which would be my age bracket.
Yeah, right.
Kids came, you know, there were veterans there were people who had,
It's a community event, yeah.
some, you know, maybe in wheelchairs or whatever, but there were a lot of people there.
We'll just
And
put
they,
in a line and just hand stuff
they
out.
just kept handing books from one to the, you know, to the other. And she said it was just the coolest thing, so I had copied this article and given it actually to Debbie. That's how long ago it was. So,
We've had that up on our bulletin board for the longest
I
time.
know,
waiting
I
for
know,
this,
yeah, so,
Ready for some new pictures of a new book brigade.
yes.
Yeah, so that'll be fun, but it also is the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to be,
Hopefully there won't be a blizzard that day.
Right, or sleet storm, or ice
we'll
storm.
have to be prepared, but we do have to start operating in the new building before we can say goodbye to this one and demolish this one. Geez, oh Pete, it's all moving so fast. Remember last year, this time, we were still muttering about when will we ever get this show on the road?
So when we had the big hole in the ground.
Right, all that.
Yeah,
All summer,
we didn't
all
even have a
summer
hole in the
into
ground.
into the fall. we
At
were-
that point in time, we didn't have a hole in the ground.
Yeah. So,
Okay, and also, Barbara Gates, which is a board member, had to withdraw her, offer for the parade.
it was an extra parade, but here we're talking about a book brigade that sounds
Yeah.
like, almost like a parade.
Yeah.
But I think we all reserved the chance to think about it more, I mean, to think about what our participation, we have traditionally had participation in the Strawberry Festival Parade, which will be maybe a month before our total opening. So there's a parade for Barbara,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, she just has to defer.
My rationale was, there's so much going on
Right,
that I didn't think it was
right, I
feasible.
think trying to do an extra parade just around the grand opening, I think you've reached the very right conclusion, because this town is kind of, the winter parade and the Strawberry Festival parade are big deals, and people really,
Right.
yeah, and our library has gone all out for that reason. Been award-winning in the past. So we have to think about, though, how much, whether we're gonna formally participate in the Strawberry Festival parade, we're
Well, we-
still thinking
We've
about
done.
it.
Yeah.
Because we might be freaked out by then.
Yeah, let me get the building open first.
We wanna get our building opened, and we have the donor event, which will be slightly before the grand opening.
Probably.
We've got a lot going on.
Are
We've
we
got a lot
participating in Winterfest parade?
Are we?
This year, probably not. Hopefully the following year we can get back in the, under the parade
Parade
circuit.
swing.
Yeah.
But this year, the Winterfest parade is very close to when we're gonna be moving things. into the- Yeah, we've got a lot going on.
Okay, also, Mary Jane, discussed printing new T-shirts, for the library opening at the last, meeting, and any further?
Well, I had told, it was Ken Boyd who had offered to do this, and I had told him to contact Aaron Joe, because
Okay.
I have no jurisdiction over T-shirts.
Okay.
So I don't always talk to him.
Didn't we talk about a type of T-shirt? What were we gonna do? Is it still gonna be the dog digging our library?
Well, we had
or-
talked about having the dog on it, and seeing if Michelle could come up with something with the dog, but, that the dog was done digging,
Right.
you know. The dog had covered everything up, yeah.
Done,
And
done digging.
one of the things that, that Ken Boyd had talked about was maybe starting, so this is, say this is the front of the T-shirt, like having, the old library, you know, this building, showing it there, and then having different authors leading to the new library. And I said, well, that's not exactly a dog digging, but, you know,
Well, that
So-
sounds cute, so we'll figure something out, but you haven't heard from Ken yet.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll probably see him tomorrow, and I can say something to
I
him.
wonder what we're doing differently tomorrow morning, are we gonna get together, say the same things? Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, and we also discussed possibly getting a new logo for the newsletter. Any movement?
We've been using the Bloom at Your Library logo for a long time, so, it's probably time to think about if we wanna continue with that logo, or if we wanna change to a new logo, so we should probably maybe have a conversation with our graphic designer about that.
Has there been people dissatisfied?
No, it's fine, but, you know, we're gonna be in a new building, maybe it's time to, I'm trying to remember how long,
We
That's a
don't
long
have,
it's been a long time, it was.
Yeah,
We did that back when I
2005
was.
maybe?
I was at Brighton
Okay.
still, so.
so the library logo is on that, kind of sign that's tacked on the front of this building, right? That white sign that says Belleville Area District
Mhm.
Library and it has a logo on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's faded down, but,
Yeah,
The white one across the porch there.
no, on the building.
It's on the building just before you get to the court, just around the corner of the porch. But there's no contemplation of the signs that Dan is ordering and that we're gonna have in the new library, the lettering and stuff. There
No,
has been no
no.
contemplation of the logo
This,
on
this
any
would
of
just be
that.
the logo that would be on the newsletter, the
Yeah.
bag.
Marketing.
This
This is
logo
ours.
is what we're talking
Right.
about, we might change, but there's nothing in stone or concrete or metal
No.
about it, so I guess we could change it.
So how would you do that? How have you come up with ideas and bring it to the board for, you recommend it?
Usually it's
What
something
did you all
that,
do before?
I think the last time we had some kind of a ad hoc committee,
Yeah,
so probably the marketing committee would come up with, you know,
Okay.
The marketing committee is.
I think the
ad hoc
we'll
last-
committee.
get some recommendations presented and to choose from.
I think the last time that we changed the logo, I was president of the library, or the Friends Committee.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's that?
and then you had that other board that was Van Buren and that had different representatives. Did you have that board at that time?
No. Didn't
That
I
was
change
only
it?
after 2010, after we,
Right.
goodness me.
We don't
Time
have a
flies.
tagline anywhere. I think. Don't we have a tagline?
Yeah, engage,
Empower,
empower,
enjoy.
Rich?
enrich.
I don't know. It's not in there.
It's
It
somewhere.
should be in there somewhere, but maybe we should put that out. We have a lot of programming to put in there next time. Anyway, it's always good to even if we stay with the same logo, it's good to
Enrich.
it's good to revisit.
Yeah, discussion, sounds good.
It was engage, empower, enrich.
Yes.
Yes.
This time seems like it would be a good time to do it. If you're
Yeah.
gonna-
Yeah.
Yeah. I know with all the other stuff going on, it's
Diggity,
low down on the list.
diggity dog, we're done.
That hot
Dog
tickety dog.
done-
Yeah, hi diggity dog, we're done.
Dog done
The
did,
dog's clicking his heels together.
the dog done dug.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't have, I'm, whatever you got next.
Okay, I was just gonna bring up about the library cards. I know you said the inventory was getting low and possibly redesigning.
Yeah.
cards.
I think,
Especially
I
if
think,
you change
well,
logo.
I think we might just order another smaller batch
Okay,
So that
to get us
we can
through,
get
that
to-
way we have time to do this.
okay,
Until we come up with the new logo.
Yes.
okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we finished our, we have another event, what else do you have on the list that you want to talk about?
That is all that I have. Yeah.
So that's what we talked about mainly at the marketing meeting. We will, as time goes on, we'll be talking more about the actual grand opening. But we didn't do a lot of that because we've got a lot of things before that.
Going back to the marketing stuff, that half sheet,
Mm-hmm.
has that been revised? I mean, to say to be determined, or to be announced.
I think we changed the, soft opening Brooklyn Brigade to, or we just said early 2020. I
Okay,
can't remember now, but we changed it from.
okay. Do we have copies of that available?
It should be up front.
And
Okay,
we'll hand those out on Saturday. Some will be available.
Yeah, we can use them at the
okay.
Harvest Fest. And I see the Harvest Fest is on the newsletter, as is the, Winterfest. And Winterfest, even if we don't march in the parade, we still have our gingerbread house stuff,
Gingerbread cookies, yeah.
which we've always done. So good for us, well, thank you. Anything more, any more discussion with the marketing committee? It's actually great fun, and it's good for a whole board to talk about it. And we are our next meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning.
Then policy.
We'll talk about the same things we talked about today. Do we wanna, we can't do much between now and tomorrow morning on the local, but I guess we could talk more about local.
We really don't have any business. Just do it by monthly.
The three of you comprise that meeting, I'm ex officio. What are you thinking, Madam Chair? Do we wanna have our meeting tomorrow? We have to have a policy meeting, I think, which is the same people.
Well, if we, having the policy meeting, we just, well, I know I have to be here for the policy
We
meeting.
might as well
so,
be here.
Yeah.
She and I need to be here for both of them anyway, so.
And,
I just came from market last
you
month.
just came from marketing
Yes,
last
ma'am.
month. So should
So
Barbara
Linda will
come?
be here
Do
tomorrow.
you wanna have a marketing meeting, or do you want to cancel it and postpone October?
Well, I mean, as Sharon says, there's really nothing new that we can really,
Which
we have
one's-
any concrete
Which one
answers.
comes first?
Policy.
Policy comes first at 10.
Policy comes first. And
then
marketing,
is
we
anyone-
had a pretty full discussion in here, which I kinda enjoy. I think that marketing of any is the most inclusive kind of, you know, what we're
That's up
gonna
to you.
do. The one thing, well, you said it, the Harvest Fest, we won't have any other time to talk before Harvest Fest, but the only thing we're talking about is people to cover in the afternoon.
Volunteer for
Yeah,
that.
they're just coming.
I have to do the soup kitchen for my church in the morning, but in the afternoon I might be able to be around. And are there any other board members who might be able to be here?
We're talking about Saturday or tomorrow?
Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be here Saturday.
I'm here in
What
the
time we
daytime, but I have
talking
to
about?
leave.
11 to
After
3
What
o'clock.
time she wants?
And the friends are gonna be.
Later in the- later.
Yeah, I'll get with you after the meeting, I'll get the schedule.
Okay, that's the only thing I can think of that you talked about that has to be decided before, you know, right away. But otherwise, do we need to have a marketing, does Barbara need to come in for the marketing committee? No.
Not really, no. I
She
mean,
needed her, I cancel it
unless-
till
yeah,
next week,
yeah,
next
yeah.
month.
Yeah, we could wait till next month, or maybe call one later in October. If, I mean, maybe this idea, that I do think that before our next board meeting, we're
We
gonna
need to
work
schedule
on
something.
logo. We might want to come together, but after there's been some
For
groundwork.
the logo, is that,
I
so
don't know.
isn't that their job, and they bring us,
Well,
whoever,
we
she
don't
said
know.
ad hoc committee
Yeah.
or something.
Well, we add
We talked to Michelle about it, and see what her ideas
Yeah,
are.
Michelle Montour,
Yeah.
does everybody know Michelle Montour? She's become the art committee chair, and she is also the designer of our stuff. And maybe,
Several,
having the committee meet after we have some input, you know, rather than just discussing the same things we talked about.
Okay, so I make a motion that we postpone the marketing committee meeting till the chair of the marketing committee feels we need to meet.
I second that motion.
It is
And/or by November,
Prior to November.
prior
yeah,
to,
prior to November.
yeah,
Prior to the scheduled meeting in November.
correct,
Does that work?
Prior to the next board meeting in
Right.
November.
yeah.
That works. We are so good.
this was very good. This was a good discussion. We're all on the same page. There's a motion on the floor, it's been moved by Dawson, supported by Gates, that the marketing committee be postponed to a date at the chair. will-
To be determined.
To be determined by the chair. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed to the motion, say no. Nobody said it. We are all in agreement, unanimous agreement on that. And thank you very much. It was a good report and a good discussion for the whole board, and thank you much. Now, the Personnel Committee, Linda? No report. It is coming along, though. When do we have to evaluate we have to do that in December?
We have to evaluate you in December.
Yes.
So
Whose
November,
idea was that?
so the,
I'm sure that's what.
Personnel Committee, which the Personnel Committees have been really effective, but it was two board members who were no longer on the board that did it. It was Michelle and Tanya. And so there was a process,
There's a
did
form.
you get any of that stuff? Have you had that?
I can forward that to you.
Okay.
And actually, at some point, we'd like to schedule a personnel meeting to look at, we're gonna be hiring new staff, we'll reevaluate the job descriptions, the salary ranges and all of that, so
Who's on
it's
the
been a while since
Personnel
that's been
Committee
looked at.
with you?
Not me.
Who's Jen?
You're on the personnel committee too, right?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
I thought it might be, well, I have it, but it's not, I can't pull it up on this thing. But I did write it down and I have it, I'll look and we'll.
Okay,
so should I call a meeting? Is that what you?
well, let me talk to you and
Okay.
and we'll try to.
Sometime
see
in
when we can schedule
October or
a
November, you'll
meeting.
probably need to get the process together, because in November, before the December meeting, you wanna have,
Okay,
because it's passed out to the whole board and
Right.
we check off.
and there's examples.
So the way it works, Mary Jo, you evaluate all the rest of the staff, we
Right.
just evaluate you.
Right,
Right, we're only responsible for the.
and there's a
direction.
form,
Right.
that
Paper trail, yeah.
has been used that you guys can use.
But you don't have to. Do they have to?
So
I mean, if they came up with another,
You can do it, you can change it however you want.
Yeah.
I wanna see it.
Easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it
they
it was
wanted,
good. I'm
Okay.
not saying it wasn't good.
they
but
wanted to look at it and
If you wanted to look at a different way of doing
seemed
it.
like.
Yeah, I'm on a committee at church where I evaluate the pastor and the other people, so I've done it before.
So the person, yeah, thank you. And Linda will work with Mary Jo and with me and Mary Jane, whoever else, to figure, well, and we'll determine who our committee are
Okay.
really quickly, but I do think it is Barbara
Barbara.
and maybe John. I'm
Yeah, I
not
can't
sure.
remember now.
I was looking at was it back in
Yeah, but
It either has to be Barbara
If you-
or John.
If you indulge me, I can run into my office.
I
Is it
did a
January?
form, I did a little piece of paper and sent it around.
All
to
the,
everybody.
all the committees.
But I just didn't save it in the phone and then sent it.
I'll go get this really.
And then can we talk about the policy committee while she's on over there?
You want her to miss out on it.
We don't want her to.
She was
miss out.
actually at that meeting, so she pretty much knows what's going on.
Ah,
So
right.
I can start. Okay, so we had a meeting on September 11th.
Twelve years, wait. Who was
Policy
that?
committee was on the 12th, wasn't it? Wasn't September 11th our last meeting? Oh, no.
No,
you're right.
it was
You're
Wednesday,
right.
September 11th.
September 11th.
It was on September 11th.
Anyway, so we had our monthly policy meeting. Or technically, it's not a monthly, we had a policy meeting. We had Mary Jane, Barbara, Alma, Sharon, Hillary, and Mary Jo. And we we reviewed the current draft of the facilities use policy, which is basically an umbrella policy that covers patron use of the libraries, bulletin boards, meeting rooms, and grounds. A draft was developed to reflect the library's mission statement and to place constraints on usage of library facilities while respecting taxpaying citizens and their rights. And the things that we discussed were changing how far out the large meeting room can be booked from 60 days out to 30 days out, because we had originally talked about doing 60 days out, and at our last meeting, Joy suggested, well, you might want to wait and do 30 days. And after some discussion, we decided that made it a lot more sense, so thank you very much for that input.
And if we didn't discuss it in the full board meeting.
And then we talked about how a deposit will be handled in the event of a cancellation less than 48 hours before a meeting room booking. We discussed it, but we didn't come up with anything in concrete, okay? And we are still discussing a lot of stuff. We also talked about whether political or religious meetings should be held in the large meeting room. We talked about it, no decision was made. We also talked about if a deposit should be required for booking the boardroom. Not the large program rooms, but the boardroom. Again, no decision has been made. We also talked about how study room reservations will be managed, and with that, we talked about, you know, if somebody wanted to make a reservation, and if they didn't show up within a allotted number of minutes, that room could then be given to somebody else who may just walk in or may have been on a waiting list. A library grounds can be used. Granted, we're not gonna have a whole lot of grounds, there's gonna be a parking lot with trees and plantings in between that aren't gonna be real conducive to holding a program, but there will be some green space around the building, and possibly using places on 4th Street depending
This
on how
4th
large.
Street Square thing,
Yeah.
it seems to be the idea of the city.
Rooftop terrace.
Yeah, the
Right,
terrace.
yeah, and-
Yeah, we'll have our terrace,
Yeah.
so we'll have some.
So, and again, no decisions have been made.
So it
We
sounds like
did-
you have a lot to do in your meeting.
Yeah. We did vote to approve sending a draft policy to John Day for a legal opinion, and I don't believe he's gotten back to you.
Yes.
Oh, he
You
did?
did? Good. So that will be discussed
Do you
tomorrow.
want to give us an update, or?
He made a couple of tweaks, so we'll
Okay.
talk about that tomorrow.
Okay.
Also, I've been meeting with a lot of staff members about the policy, and they had some good input. One of the notable things we really discussed was the whole idea of taking a deposit. We talked with the Milford Library, we just did away with that. It was more trouble than it was worth to keep
Okay.
track of everything, so we're going to recommend to you tomorrow that we not
Okay.
take a deposit. I think we have enough other systems in place to, you know, that I don't think we need to do that.
Mhm.
Are you charging for the community room?
No.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a really long meeting, but I think it was really productive.
And the questions to be asked, and then, Mary Jo sent us all, email, the committee members, the policy committee members. Is that who you sent it to today?
Yeah, I just sent you
From the
some
Library
homework for tomorrow's
Association.
meeting. It's a paper from the American Library Association that talks about meeting room use.
And what kind of restriction, you know, and
Yeah.
it gives us a little better industry-wide
I know
discussion.
Ann Sherrick has very
And
strong
philosophy
opinions.
about it, and
about
especially,
that.
especially related to religion and politics. I think
Right,
it's
that.
well, and one of the
What is
things we
legal
did
to
discuss
restrict.
too was, we didn't wanna be too constraining, that people would think, oh, this is too much trouble to use one of these spaces in the library, you know, and I think as time goes on, we, you know, we get some more, what's the word I want? Under your feet.
Experience.
Experience, thank you, under our feet with the new building. you know, you can always change a policy.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the biggest things we talked about, and we did kind of agree about it, is, and I think we've got it in writing somewhere, did we talk about it last month? That the library will not be using our rooms for social.
I mean, the public.
Public.
Right.
For public
For birthday
social
parties
events,
and
birthday parties and all
showers.
those
There's
things.
no private events.
Except
Yeah.
if it's my birthday. This is my birthday month.
The library can use it for whatever it wants.
Right,
Yeah.
but the public will,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're gonna get, I mean, I think you'll be happy.
that we made that policy, right?
I just found this personnel committee, Barbara and me.
Oh, good.
I'm not,
Well, there we
we're not
go.
on the policy one.
No, you're
No,
not
you're
on
not.
personnel policy, but you're on
Personnel.
Personnel. Okay.
Almost on policy with
And
me.
who else?
I'm
You
a
guys
marketing.
talked
Just
about,
Just
And the
Us
two
two.
of you
The two
are
of
the,
on personnel.
right. The, marketing committee was the largest, the marketing committee and the building committee are three people on them.
no, there's a lot of work. in
But
this.
because there's a lot of work there, the other two are just two, and then I'm the ex officio, so I try to attend.
There'll probably be less work on marketing eventually, but
Yeah.
you're in the high
Yeah,
demand time.
Yeah.
So, I'm done.
okay.
Did you talk about whether, you'll have an online reservation system?
We will have an online reservation system for the study rooms, the large meeting room and the conference room. We're actually going to make people, we'll talk to them on the phone and
Okay,
maybe do some preliminary work with them, but they need to come inside to look at.
They
I
have to come
haven't
in and
used
sign.
Lib apps
Mhm.
version, but Melanie said they used it at Chelsea and they loved it.
Okay, we're using Spaces right now.
Spaces, okay.
I just love when you all do your library talk.
It's called library.
Flow and all these things that we have here.
Okay.
Well, good, that was very interesting. Then we have accounts payable to do. We have finished our committee reports, and we have accounts payable which have been distributed in your packets.
I make a motion to accept the accounts payable as presented.
Moved by Dawson
I'll second that motion.
and supported by Priest, that the accounts payable be approved as presented. Are there any questions or comments about the accounts payable that you're looking at right now? I don't hear any questions.
Just for my education. July payout to the Friends of Belleville area.
Library.
Is that July payout, we pay out for, just so I know what it means.
We take in money on the Comes VF, and then once a month we cut them a check.
It's like book sales and memberships.
Oh,
And-
that's a good amount.
Yeah, well, and actually, that's, even though this says July, I believe that's July and August. So we ended up having to cut it, we did one check for 2 months this time. I think I think part of that, they did their August book sale, so it's a little bit bigger than normal. But they take in a fair amount of money.
I contribute to it a lot, so.
Oh, for book sales? Yeah.
I'm always buy books.
They might have had some business memberships coming in during that time period.
So, and then, that, it's a close relationship between the Belleville Area District Library and the Friends of the Belleville Area District Library. So this encapsulates the financial agreement. And, there's a lot of money that passes back and forth. But, in an official way. So any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed by saying nay. The ayes carry with no dissenting votes. The other piece in here for the building committee has already reviewed this piece. This is for everybody's information. And it is the substantial expenditures being made to build our new building. Are there any questions on it?
Sorry, budgeted, so.
Yeah, it's already pretty much done deal, but if there are questions, this is a good time the whole board has a chance to look at what,
Almost at 2/3 paid out.
yeah, and we're getting pretty done with the whole thing. So I think that we are now at the point of the director's report.
Do not get too much to report. You probably noticed the front doors were wide open when you came in. Our air conditioner knows that we're done with it, and it's done with us, so. It's on its very last leg, so.
Been battling you all along.
It's been battling us all along, but it finally decided that it's kind
And we
of
had
done,
one
so.
very hot
Yeah.
day.
And one really, really hot day, and it just couldn't keep up, so one of the blower motors works and the other one is not functional, so we've chosen, in order to not blow out fuses, we've chosen to just live with things this week. It's still getting a little warm in here this week, but I think Saturday the weather's changing, so.
It's supposed to be 40 tonight.
Yeah, I know, it's getting cooler in the evening, so we're okay, we're in the home stretch now.
It
but
would
we
be a
just-
silly
We
time.
want
to
it, we
put
want it to
money in
last, we want the HVAC unit to last until February, so.
And
I
that's
think we'll be okay. Dean, our construction manager, actually bought some, he'd gotten Long Mechanical to come out, the HVAC people who are doing the new library, he came and repaired this unit. Dean actually went out and bought some filters, he's gonna replace our filters for us too, so.
I love that
I'm
guy.
very grateful to him.
He is really a good guy.
And I wanted to comment on the library dig that we had on Saturday. It was a very lovely event. We had about 40 people attending. Most everyone came with shovels to dig out existing perennials that our library has so that they can take them home and plant them.
So in our newsletter, we talked about it, we told people they had to sign up, and a bunch, I think 50 some odd people did.
Mhm.
And we have these pictures of this, of what we've always looked at as our, but if you go out there now, none of this is there anymore, because people have dug it up and taken it home.
And we drew names so that, everybody could, we had a drawing so that everybody could get their, went around one time and everybody could get their first choice of what they wanted.
And a few of our staff have taken home some library plants. I have a friend, I don't have much room for perennials, but I have friend and family perennials outside. It's kind of nice. Every time you look at them, you think of the people that you got. So some of these people will be thinking about the library every time they look at their yard. I thought that was a really cute thing. And plus, I was spending time that day with Debbie Green, the gardener extraordinaire. And I got discussion of the Latin names of what all those plants are. I don't understand her.
The Latin names, what are they?
Oh,
We're giving you a quiz.
I flunk. You all have talked to Debbie longer than I have, so you all have.
Like, there's a
heard
nice
them.
pink flower, there's a nice purple
Good.
flower.
I'm just talking about, isn't that
That's the
pretty?
Latin word for pink.
Well, now you can do an app, a plant net, and you can take a picture and it'll identify.
Yeah, I
for you.
heard about that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
But I just asked Debbie or Claudette. That's what I do.
Smart woman.
So that was one of our things out of this newsletter that I thought was kind of interesting, that I really wasn't real aware of till I read the newsletter. And then I had some lady come and ask me about it, and I was glad I could answer her questions. Somebody who had a little kid, yeah. So, you never know. That was one of our programs that went well. The staff stuff was kind of interesting in here. About Joe is gonna stay doing a few things with
Joe's going to
music.
do a couple of jobs for us. He's going to continue working on ordering the music, especially the music order for the new building. It's kind of a work in progress anyway. And if this works out, we'll keep him in that role. So You can kind of still keep us in. What else did I say?
Clerk hours, I mean, paid.
Oh, yeah, we're just, kind of reallocating some hours, as we start gearing up for the, retooling for the new library, so we're just kind of giving some people some extra hours before we start hiring just yet, so.
And last month in that space and in our discussion, we talked about the library staff who was leaving. Joe is one of them, and Macau, what's Macau's?
Like,
What's her last name?
Demery.
Demery, yeah. But if you go in our staff room now, you can see pictures from Paris that Macau has sent back. She's having a wonderful time.
Was she working there? or-
Yeah.
She's teaching for a year.
Oh, she's the one
She's
that's.
very
teaching.
engaged.
Yeah.
And I know she had butterflies at the last minute, and she was kind of jittery about the whole thing, and she's really loves it,
Oh,
so.
great.
But
Where's
it's
Joe
so-
going?
Joe took a job in private industry, so.
Oh.
But
He's
the
still
day-
around here
Yeah.
though, right?
Right?
He's still around here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's gonna still participate with us on a part-time basis. But Mikkel, the day, we had that big discussion in here, and both of them were in here when we left, but Mikkel was dressed up, they had a goodbye party for her, and they brought all this little parade in this little striped shirt and
Oh,
Right. She was running around here and that, I thought that was really
I think
cute.
we had
It
a
is-
loaf of bread for her too, to put on her.
We have a really lovely library family, our staff interact very, very family-like.
I never met one of them I didn't like.
Yeah, it's always been a great thing, and we have net neutrality to read about.
Yeah, net neutrality is no more.
Yeah,
The court ruled against it.
they, yeah. So.
Okay, remind me what that is.
The concept basically with net neutrality is that companies can't throttle traffic. So what I'm looking for on the internet is just as important as what you're looking
Okay.
for. With this, basically, a service provider can say, okay, you're streaming a video that I'm selling you, so I'm gonna give you full access, but oh no, you over here, all you're doing is,
The concern on-
researching your ailment, and we're gonna throttle your internet speed.
The concern on
As
net
much bandwidth.
neutrality is having a two-tier system, a second class.
Right.
Yep.
Access
Mhm.
in cyber space. I do understand that concern. And the concern that everyday people, and especially, libraries are where to help people have access to more, and there may be some ways that people will be limited because of this.
But now
It's
we go
a
to the
Fed.
States.
It's the Fed that
It's a-
made this.
Yes.
the-
But basically, this ruling allowed for individual states to have their own
Sounds like
laws.
it's
Yeah.
extremely confusing.
The FCC has, and it was something that people were pushing for opening, keeping
Yeah.
things more open, and the FCC
Seems logical.
has now made this federal ruling that is closing things off.
Well, it's being looked at as a utility in it, so just as important as
Right.
water or
Right.
electricity, that it's
That you
important to
can't,
control.
right.
But now they're saying, nope, the rich people get the best stuff.
That's kind of what it seems.
Yeah.
I was
Concerning.
in the wrong line.
I'm
I
putting
have a
things away
question,
like I'm
I got
all
one
done.
thing about your report.
Oh,
I wonder
we
if
have to do
the
our
total
little chit-chat
service
around the table.
include, like the digital stuff, Coupa and?
Certain includes digital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your report. Any other questions to our director? She is informed and accessible all the time to us, so if you don't think of your question now, you certainly will get an answer when you do think of it. So now we're at trustee comments, and we will start, we have John, my goodness.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna be here all night.
My, so we'll start with Barbara.
Well, I just wanted to comment on, since it's in our minutes, I did attend John's art show. And I went in the morning early and got a chance to meet his wife's mother,
Yeah.
two sisters, and I bought, so one of the sisters was selling a starfish lapel pants. And so I bought one of those, because they're my favorite, so it was a nice morning, and his house is beautiful, the view.
I live right next door.
Do you?
Yeah.
Going which way?
Well, if you're looking at the house, I'm on the left. But that's the day I left to go to Texas. So I
Yeah,
go.
she
I
was
go to
so-
that every year, but
So as you're going from Belleville out there, hers is on this side.
Columbia, we're going down Columbia.
Well,
We're
it's
down here in River
East
Drive.
Huron
Huron.
River Drive.
Yeah.
So I come to her house
First,
first.
and then
And then the big beautiful, I always say I'm next.
I
You
see
know
this
that big
big
beautiful
beautiful
farmhouse?
house.
I live next door.
That big beautiful house, that house isn't mine.
Yeah, everybody goes,
Well, and John has been talking about it in here, and I think all of that, as usual, I went on the late shift. But I had a great time. I sat on the back porch with Mrs. Stevens, with Debbie Jurica's mom, and we had, she lives in Lansing, and we know people,
She's 90-ish.
yeah, she's
did she,
an
what did she
adorable
work in a
lady.
jail or something?
She was the first, this is what we talked about, she was the first woman prison guard
Yeah.
in the state of Michigan.
Amazing.
And she worked at the Department of Corrections under a man named Bob Brown, who was the corrections director at the time, and that's the friend we have in common. We were just talking about him, and I just had to contact her yesterday because he died yesterday.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but he was wonderful. So she and I had in common a wonderful
This is
mutual
Debbie's
friend.
mom.
Debbie
Yes.
She was the first prison guard, and she was at Jackson Prison, and another good friend of mine who worked, I had a lot of state employee friends, and another good friend of mine who worked at Jackson Prison, who I saw this month, he knew who she was too, because she remembered these people. She's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
that's a
agree,
great person.
that was one of the, that was
Yeah, I bought one of Debbie's baskets,
Did you?
and she knew about baskets they used to make called Loganberry.
Oh,
Oh, look.
Logan Beard bags?
She said they gone out of baskets.
Yeah, they
I was
did.
surprised,
Yes,
'cause I have several of their baskets.
me
so,
too.
Well, but now you have Debbie Jo.
I have been.
Yeah.
What did you
Just
with
as
their
good.
bags?
It was
Probably better.
She may not have a building that looks like a basket, but she's still got baskets.
Yeah, she does, and they're beautiful. That's a really fun, and this year the weather was absolutely perfect.
Except the night before, they said the wind came over
Yeah.
the lake and blew this huge tent over.
Yeah.
Oh,
It belonged to their son or something.
Yeah, well, and at the very end, because I was there kind of as people were closing up, and I'm sitting on the porch talking to Mrs. Stephen, and at the very end, the wind came off.
Yeah.
The wind can come off the
It
lake
can
like
get really
that.
wild in that way.
So some of a couple of the little booths right next to the lake, they had to, but they were starting to put things away at that time anyway. I don't think anything really dangerous happened, but in years when it's been cold or rainy, it can be kind of difficult, but this year was great.
Well
It
attended
was a
that
perfect
morning.
day.
Lots of people that morning, I don't know how to.
It was well attended all day as far as I saw, from what I saw.
That's all I have.
That was a nice thing. Joy, tell us something fun. Tell us,
Harvest Fest.
yeah.
I have to go apple shopping and all the rest of the shopping for all the crafts.
Or you can go to Birds and get a pumpkin down in Sumter, I think it is. Birds, big pumpkins.
Birds,
And they
big
have
pumpkins.
pumpkins this big.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Goodness.
I just
Don't
went
get
to
one.
pumpkin,
How do you
What is it?
transport that?
pumpkin,
How do you
It's right on
feel?
Hannon Road. Pumpkins just keep going, Hannon.
the one on,
Wired.
A wired?
no, the, in Van Buren. What is it?
In Van
Or I mean,
Buren.
in Sumter. No, not New Box, pumpkin. oh my
Pumpkin
God.
factory.
Thank you.
Oh,
You're welcome.
Just went to Pumpkin Factory, but they had nothing like that. They had them about this big, but nothing like
these were
that.
huge.
I can't
Absolutely
even
huge.
imagine.
They're like $85.
Can you imagine when it rots?
Yeah.
You can make a coach out of that.
Right. Well,
That would be cool.
Yeah, well, last you till midnight and then
Lots of pumpkin seeds.
Oh, yeah.
No, you guys gotta excuse me because I'm tired, but this is my very busy season with everything, so, but I'm looking forward to harvest.
Linda,
I went to the Friends meeting on Saturday.
you're not gonna show us baby
Oh.
pictures?
It could be there.
But I just wanted to say that Donna, the president, Donna Gilkey-Lemon, reviewed their bylaws because they're worried about their January annual meeting, and they're thinking about just having a short business meeting and then having the big annual meeting, maybe in March. because
After
of-
we're in the new
yeah.
building.
So I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah.
They haven't decided yet, they're gonna vote on that in November. And of course, the book sale's November 3rd. So my heart's still, part of my heart is still there at the Friends. But,
All the books will be 25 cents,
yeah.
all these.
Linda and Mary Jane are former presidents of the Friends.
And me,
You were
long
president of
time
the
ago,
Friends?
yeah.
And her husband's
And
still
Ricky,
alive.
Her husband
yes.
is still there. Her husband is never, yeah, they'll never let him go.
No, they won't, they just keep moving him around.
But yeah, Donna and Manny, Donna and her husband are,
Yeah,
we've got it.
he's the treasurer.
Oh, is he? Oh, yeah, I get all those husbands involved.
Right. We've got a new couple.
My husband just carts things and cleans up with the book sales and stuff like that.
Mine just gets district library agreements approved.
Yeah, he had a man with him, a season, what do they say, for, there is a time. and a season. Yeah, and he was the right man to be where he was when that was being done. Mary Jane?
Okay, so I went to something, actually two different things within the last month that I think are really exciting. And the first thing was the, what they call it? It was a mingle for the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
They have revamped how they're doing things. Their CEO is a gentleman by the name of Mike Cole, and he has more enthusiasm than a kid on Christmas Day, as far as I'm concerned.
Is he from Belleville? From this area?
I don't know originally, but he is now.
He is now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he just has all these really great ideas. He wants people to come in, and as far as like businesses, he's trying to set up like subgroups. So small businesses, if there's major businesses, and the biggest thing that I found, when he was giving his talk when they had their mingle a couple weeks ago, was he wants to include nonprofits in a group that work together, and that would be us, and that would be a lot of the different community organizations. But he sends out information, he's gotten a whole bunch of cool perks for people who are members of the chamber. And my understanding is, because the library is a member of the chamber, we are all included, correct?
Right.
Okay, so they're doing coffee things that are going to be on the first and the third Tuesdays of the month, unless unless you're told otherwise, you meet at the chamber, and for right now, you bring your own coffee. Because they don't have a coffee pot, and they don't have coffee,
But it's at that same building that's been the chamber on Main Street.
unless it's, unless you're notified otherwise. But he wasn't, the first one that they did, he wasn't expecting maybe more than 5 or 6 people, so there's a desk in the room that you first come into when you walk into the building, so you have 5 or 6 chairs, and then more people kept coming in. Then we went in the conference room, and we had just about filled
The table.
all the tables.
That's a big table.
Which was really, really neat. He's got a lot of great ideas. A lot of the people that are that have been, members of the chamber that were like, oh, I'm not really sure if I wanna stay a member. In fact, Rick told me he had to talk the VFW into staying in the group, because they weren't sure what they were getting out of it, you know. The other thing was, this past Friday, they had what they call a morning spark. And it was, it was between the Belleville area, Chamber of Commerce and the Southwestern Chamber of Commerce, which is.
Southwestern Wayne.
Yeah, that one, thank you. A lot of people. From Belleville, there was myself, Jeff Bush representing Yankee Air Museum. Rick was representing the VFW, and Steve Jones was there too. And 2 members from the Lions Club. The rest of the people were from different parts in western Wayne County. And they had some nice ideas. They had announcements to make, perks to give away. I wish we could have had more people there. It was sort of a last minute thing that I found out about, my husband said. So I RSVP'd for this thing on Friday, so we're going. I'm like, okay, you know. What was the thing I was gonna say? Oh, we had a big circle. It was over Western, or Wayne County Community College, the Western campus over in Hagerty. And there was this huge circle of people. Mike Cole told us all to get into this big circle of people, and we went around and introduced ourselves. They didn't want a 3-minute dissertation on what you want to do. They wanted a tagline. Some people knew what that was, some people didn't. When it got to me, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm like almost at the end, and I'm thinking, okay, so I introduced myself and I said, and my tagline is, libraries are not obsolete and you need to come see ours. And some of the people had heard about it, some of them hadn't, some of them were really interested in finding out what types of services we have, or we're going to, what we're gonna have in the new building.
Good.
So if you haven't signed up for emails from the Chamber of Commerce, please do.
Yeah, cause the old.
The old one is different.
You have to start a whole new.
I can send you a link
Yeah,
to,
cause I don't think
to
I'm
the
getting,
new
I
one.
used to get a ton of them, I
Yeah.
don't think I'm getting them.
but,
Cause I think
just
you have to sign up.
all different kinds of programs, some of them at a nominal cost.
Can I
Some
wanna
of them
ask
are
you
free.
something, this new director, the chamber is now, I thought it was my understanding that that it's a consultant firm, the direction of the chamber is through a firm, is that correct? Am I right about that?
I know that Mike has he does, what?
Some kind of
Yeah.
firm, and
He
the
does-
firm was staffing our chamber, is that correct?
I don't know about that, I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, Mike has a business,
Right,
and he puts on all these big how to be better in life things over
Yeah.
at the college and
Coaching?
stuff. And,
yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of.
Right.
Personal.
so he's a promoter,
Uh-huh.
and so they've got him in there, and he's just,
So that
Sending out
is the Belleville Area Chamber of Commerce a client of his business?
Or is he an
they
employee?
hired him as their
He's the
interim director.
CEO, they hired him as the CEO.
Of the chamber.
Right,
When
interim,
it evolved.
yeah.
Paul?
They changed the configuration of the
Is he
Chamber
still
of
there?
Commerce.
Yeah, Paul's not there anymore.
Well, there.
Well,
Henning,
yeah,
that used to
I
be
thought
on
it
this
was,
board.
yeah.
But anyway, so,
Well, I appreciate the update, because I haven't quite understood as it's been changed. But good, sounds like they're perking up.
the other thing too is there were quite a few, businesses that have larger businesses like Costco and, what was the other one? there were a number of hotel chains. Whatever we can do to help you, if you have a project going on, please let us know. However we can help you.
Well,
So,
good.
yeah.
That's always good. Well, thank you. Alma?
Just wanted to say I'm excited about the event coming up this Saturday, and hopefully we will have great weather.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, and also I attended the event at John's and Debbie's, and of course, they got a lot of my money.
That's a funny one.
They got my husband's money.
That's a
But it was a
funny
nice event, as usual, so it was a fun time.
Well, now it's time for the chair's report, and since I chitty-chatted all through the John Jariga, the art show, I don't have anything else to say, and John Jariga isn't here to butt into my talk and say it's adjournment time, so do we have a motion for adjournment from anybody
Madam
else?
Chairman,
Yeah.
Chairwoman,
Yeah.
I make a motion that we continue this meeting until John returns.
And we credit all the hours to John's list of how
I
much
make a
time
motion
he's
that we
been
adjourn.
And I second it.
It's moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.